Hey, honey, it's me. I'm gonna read to you tonight, and to hopefully quiet your loud brain at night, and to give you some peace and quiet to help you fall asleep. Um, if you're watching this, I'm probably in Europe, and probably I'm not able to talk to you right now. So I want you to know that I'm thinking about you, and I love you very much, and I cannot wait to come home to see you again, and to be with you again, and go have sleepovers with you again, and drive you places again, and do all those things again. I cannot wait, and I just know that each day, one day at a time, we'll get closer and closer to seeing each other again. But for now, I'm going to read to you to help you fall asleep. And I'm reading your favorite, The Fellowship of the Ring, right here. Fellowship of the Ring. There we go. By J.R.R. Tolkien. Chapter 1. A long-expected party. When Mr. Bilbo Baggins of Bag End announced that he would shortly be celebrating his 111st birthday with a party of special magnificence, there was much talk and excitement in Hobbiton. Bilbo was very rich and very peculiar. He had been the wonder of the Shire for 60 years, ever since his remarkable disappearance and unexpected return. The riches he had brought back from his travels had now become a local legend, and it was popularly believed, whatever the old folk might say, that the hill at Bag End was full of tunnels stuffed with treasure. And if that was not enough for fame, there was also his prolonged vigor to marvel at. Time wore on, but it seemed to have little effect on Mr. Baggins. At 90 he was much the same as at 50. At 99 they began to call him well preserved, but unchanged would have been near the mark. There were some that shook their heads and thought this was too much of a good thing. It seemed unfair that anyone should possess apparently perpetual youth as well as reputedly inexhaustible wealth. It will have to be paid for, they said. It isn't natural, and trouble will come of it. But so far trouble had not come, and as Mr. Baggins was generous with his money, most people were willing to forgive him his oddities and his good fortune. He remained on visiting terms with his relatives, and he had many devoted admirers among the hobbits of poor and unimportant families. But he had no close friends until some of his younger cousins began to grow up. The eldest of these, and Bilbo's favorite, was young Frodo Baggins. When Bilbo was 99, he adopted Frodo as his heir, and brought him to live at Bag End, and the hopes of the Sackville Bagginses were finally dashed. Bilbo and Frodo happened to have the same birthday, September 22nd. "You had better come and live here, Frodo my lad," said Bilbo one day, "and then we can celebrate our birthday parties comfortably together." At that time Frodo was still in his tweens, as the hobbits called the irresponsible 20s, between childhood and the coming of age at 33. 12 more years passed. Each year the Bagginses had given very lively combined birthday parties at Bag End, but now it was understood that something quite exceptional was being planned for that autumn. Bilbo was going to be 111, 111, a rather curious number, and a very respectable age for a hobbit. The old Took himself had only reached 130. And Frodo was going to be 33, 3-3, an important number, the date of his coming of age. Tongues began to wag in Hobbiton and Bywater, and rumor of the coming event traveled all over the Shire. The history and character of Mr. Bilbo Baggins became once again the chief topic of conversation, and the older folk suddenly found their reminiscences in welcome demand. No one had a more attentive audience than old Ham Gamgee, commonly known as the Gaffer. He held forth at the Ivy Bush, a small inn on the Bywater Road, and he spoke with some authority, for he had tended the garden at Bag End for 40 years, and had helped old Holman in the same job before that. Now that he was himself growing old and stiff in the joints, the job was mainly carried on by his youngest son, Sam Gamgee. Both father and son were on very friendly terms with Bilbo and Frodo. They lived on the hill itself, in number 3 Bagshot Row, just below Bag End. A very nice, well-spoken, gentle hobbit is Mr. Bilbo, as I've always said, the Gaffer declared. With perfect truth, for Bilbo was very polite to him, calling him Master Hamfast, and consulting him constantly upon the growing of vegetables. In the matter of roots, especially potatoes, the Gaffer was recognized as the leading authority by all in the neighborhood, including himself. "But what about this Frodo that lives with him?" asked Old Noakes of Bywater. "Baggins is his name, but he's more than half a brandy-buck, they say. It beats me why any Baggins of Hobbiton should go looking for a wife away there in Buckland, where folks are so queer." "And no wonder they're queer," put in Daddy Two-Foot, the Gaffer's next-door neighbor. "If they live on the wrong side of the Brandywine River and right again the Old Forest, that's a dark bad place if half the tales be true." "You're right, Dad," said the Gaffer. Not that the Brandy-Bucks of Buckland live in the Old Forest, but they're a queer breed, seemingly. They fool about with boats on that big river. It isn't natural. Small wonder that trouble come of it, I say. But be that as it may, Mr. Frodo is a nice and young hobbit as you could wish to meet, very much like Mr. Bilbo, and more than looks. After all, his father was a Baggins. A decent, respectable hobbit was Mr. Drogo Baggins. There was never much to tell of him, till he was drowned. "Drowned!" said several voices. They had heard this and other darker rumors before, of course, but hobbits have a passion for family history, and they were ready to hear it again. "Well, so they say," said the Gaffer. "You see, Mr. Drogo, he married poor Miss Primula Brandybuck. She was our Mr. Bilbo's first cousin on the mother's side, her mother being the youngest of Old Tuke's daughters. And Mr. Drogo was his second cousin. So Mr. Frodo is his first and second cousin, once removed either way, as the saying is, if you follow me. And Mr. Drogo was staying at Brandy Hall with his father-in-law, old Master Gorbodoc, and he often did after his marriage. And he went out boating on the Brandywine River, and he and his wife were drowned, and Mr. Poor Frodo only a child and all." "I've heard they went on the water after dinner in the moonlight," said Old Noakes, "and it was Drogo's weight that sunk the boat." "And I heard she pushed him in, and he pulled her in after him," said Sandyman the Hobbiton Miller. "You shouldn't listen to all you hear, Sandyman," said the Gaffer, who did not much like the Miller. "There isn't no call to go talking of pushing and pulling. Boats are quite tricky enough for those that sit still without looking further for the cause of trouble. Anyway, there was this Mr. Frodo, left an orphan and stranded, as you might say, among those queer Bucklanders, being brought up anyhow in Brandy Hall, a regular warren by all accounts. Old Master Gorbodoc never had fewer than a couple hundred relations in the place. Mr. Bilbo never did a kinder deed than when he brought the lad back to live among decent folk." And I think 8 minutes should be pretty good for right now. Yeah, I love you. Good night. I hope you sleep well. Good night, Princess. I love you.